Hello, Sunbeams. Welcome to SunshineRealms. My name is Sunshine. Let's do some cleansing before we get started today. I've been guided this morning, this glorious morning, to speak about my personal story, my pathway to tarot and the healing modalities that are in spirituality. And a lot of people do not know how I arrived in this space. So I get the question a lot about my personal story. So this is going to be a short video just to go over who I am, where I come from, and the spaces that I'm in right now compared to where I used to be. So if you are on a healing journey of any kind, if you are starting your journey, or if you are healing currently, or if you feel you have healed portions of your life and you are still working on your healing journey, sit down. Grab a cup of coffee or tea or water, whatever your fluid source is, and let's chat. Let's just talk about spaces and places in life. So I welcome anyone into this space, and specifically because people ask, why is this considered my sacred space, my healing space? And it's because I used to thrive in chaos. I was addicted to chaos, and I was birthed through the womb of chaos. And so part of the reason why I'm here is because I have survived, and I had to learn survival mechanisms and tools and things that would teach me how to journey alone without seeking help all the time, without having the sense of feeling lost without the chaos. And so here we are, 2025. And in my years on this earth, I have learned that you have to take responsibility for yourself, for your pain, and for the things that you need that no one else knows that you need. And so let's get into that. Let me start off by saying being birthed into chaos from the womb of chaos and addiction, many layers of addiction, taught me how to survive and thrive in that survival energy. And I learned a lot about myself. I was the quiet child. I was the intuitive child. I was the empathic child. And I was a highly sensitive child, and I still am. But I learned how to use those tools of observation and intuition and sensitivity to help me navigate and communicate and move around in spaces that I was not able to do that freely and willingly and at my own pace before. So I learned how to navigate through chaos, through addiction, through abuse, through mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, and sometimes painfully, financially driven pain and sacrifice as well, because anyone who understands the chaos of addiction, the child's needs are not always considered. So if you have ever been in that space or succumbed to that sort of energy, this is a sacred space for you. There's no judgments here, but I invite anyone to open up the space to your inner child so that the sacred space that you feel inside of you, that you create yourself through your own healing journey, that child is welcomed within your soul. And within your soul, you'll find other souls that carry a happy, peaceful inner child. And that's how I arrived at this moment. So my journey started in chaos and it continued in chaos. And I learned how to adapt. And whatever is around me, I am going to adapt to those circumstances. I am going to learn, observe, intuit, and be sensitive to all of the things that are around me so that I can somehow remain a fly on the wall and still embedded in the chaos. But the chaos started to impact my life because I internalized a lot of that pain and I did not have a place for it to go. And we'll get into the places that we put the pain and how we can reach into those spaces in order to gather it again. So, phase 2 of the healing journey, being birthed from the womb, surviving in chaos and abuse for many years. That's all I knew. That's all I knew. And so I put my experiences in the attic. And I remember as a child, I used to be a very secluded, reclusive. I didn't like being around a lot of people because I could feel a lot of energy. I had always been that type of person. I wanted to be with a book most times or sitting by the window because when air would breathe into me, I felt safe. I felt safe in books. I felt safe in music. I felt safe in quiet spaces where no one was around. And that was the only time I could see myself and hear myself. Even as a child, I would sit in the window. As a teenager, I would sit in the window and I would read or just be by myself. And I remember feeling a lot. So if you have a very sensitive nature, you don't even know where it's coming from. You just feel it. And so not understanding my gifts and my innate abilities and my survival mechanisms at that time, it caused me to sort of fall and stay falling for a period of time. So I put all of my pain and my experiences in the attic. I used to, and I'll say this, I used to put it there on purpose. I remember creating a space in my mind where it could go. And I remember putting them in places that I didn't think anyone would know where to go to get them except me. I would journal, and then eventually my journal was discovered. And so that became a form of hate towards me. So I stopped journaling, I stopped writing, and I stifled it and put it in the attic. And so my voice dwindled. And I lived many years with those things in the attic, with a stifled voice and a stifled sense of self. And I became more and more and more adaptive to whatever or whoever was around me, even if it were abusive. So fast forward to being an adult. And adulting was difficult because I wanted to be alone. And I wanted to navigate on my own. I wanted to navigate without the chaos. I wanted to navigate without all of the noise. I wanted to navigate without all of the authoritarian dictators in my life. And I naturally gravitated towards souls that seemed to have it all together, or who knew how to hide or transmute their pain. And I learned how to do that. Not that they didn't carry it, because I'm still an observer. I'm still an intuitive person. I'm still a highly sensitive person. I'm still an empath. But I learned from people who knew how to carry their pain with them. They didn't have a place to put it. they seem to manage it. And so I learned how to adapt. For many years, I found myself forcing myself through the matrix, forcing myself through the corporate world, forcing myself to allocate and acquire and accumulate and compete and compare and all the things that the external world tells you to do, so that that internal world never gets nourished. So I fed it because it seemed to be what everyone else was doing. Me being a very adaptive person, me being a very intuitive person. So I did what everyone else was doing in the matrix. I followed all the rules. I didn't like breaking rules. I settled. I smiled. I said yes sir, no sir, all day long. And for many years, until that world started to crumble. Now we can get into the awakening. The awakening did not happen until everything started to crumble. And I mean crumble. To the point where I had no control over the total loss I was experiencing. Everything that I thought I had my hands on just fell through my fingers. Just fell through. And I was trying my best to keep it together. One by one by one by one. Everything that I thought I had my hands on disappeared. And that is where I had to revisit the attic, because I already had emotions and experiences in the attic. So the attic was full, jam-packed with years of crap, years of pain, years of emotions, loss. I mean, you name it, it was in that attic. It wasn't all boxed. It was in bags. It was old and stale because I had put it there my entire life since I was a child. I had a place to put my garbage. So imagine an entire attic, and it lives in your crowning space. It just hovers over you. It's like, here's my garbage that I keep. It's not on the ground. It's hovering. And Spirit is going to make everything fall so that you can take a look at it. You can smell it. You can taste it. You can see it. You can experience it. You can feel it, so that you can clean it out. So here I am with my entire life crumbling. And I know it's crumbling. I'm trying my best to keep it together, right? Doing all the things that says, don't let it fall. Don't let anyone see you fall. And you're just free falling. Because it's not in your control. You can lean into it. You can surrender to it. But you can't stop it. And my survival mechanisms kicked in so strong that I went fighting. And that is where my awakening began. It began with me fighting to keep that garbage from crumbling, from having to see it, from having to take a look at it, from having to open that attic door and unpack it. So, as a young adult who had lost everything I had created, I remember looking back at that point in my life where whiskey and cigarettes controlled my entire life. Let me say that again. Whiskey and cigarettes controlled my entire life. I couldn't survive without them. And I had a conversation with Spirit, and I said, I have 1 ounce, 1% of integrity left. What do I do with my 1%? And I remember writing it down in my journal. That journal has now been burned because that was a very dark space in my life. It was part of my purging. We'll get more into that later on. That 1 ounce of integrity. I said, Spirit, what do you want me to do with the 1 ounce of integrity that I have left? And I was gritting my teeth and fighting back tears, and I was so angry. I was in the grieving process where I didn't like it. I didn't like myself. I didn't like the situation I had gotten myself into. I didn't even like anything about anything that was going on around me other than cigarettes and whiskey. And maybe a kale salad every now and then. But I just loved being in that space because that's when I turned my life around. And yes, I did experience even more loss after that conversation. I did realize that the bottom could get deeper after having that conversation. And I did have to experience even more before I actually unpacked the attic. But I remember having that conversation with myself, with where I was in my life, with my higher self, with all the higher powers around me who also saw me write down that 1% in integrity on that piece of paper. So let's get into that. So I took my 1% and I leaned in. It took a lot for me to lean in. I am a fixed sign. I am an Aquarius. So when Spirit has to push me, everything has to crumble. Everything, in order for me to open up my eyes and see and act and move. And I am going to move like a turtle. I had absolutely nothing left to give to myself, so I started to give to other people. I thought if I depleted myself and what I had left in my reserve, that it was my time to go. I completely attached a narrative to my life that I thought that I was going to go down. And I actually thought that that 1% of integrity meant that I'm going to live my days giving to the people around me that I love until there is nothing left. Many years until Spirit woke me up again. That wake-up call came when I surrendered. I knew I had this trash hovering over me. I knew it's as if I was brought into the awareness of the things that I need to do, but I wasn't giving myself the opportunity to actually do the work. So the work began, and each time Spirit leaned in to give me a reprieve, I took it as a blessing and I created it as sacredness, because I felt like if I was given a little, that was it. Like that's all I would have. So I created a lot from a very little bit. And I had done that my entire life. I know how to create a lot from very little because I've been given incremental blessings that I then turn into monumental blessings for me in my personal life. So I was given more. and more and more. More space to grow, more space to expand, more space to learn, more space to earn knowledge, more space to learn how to discern, more space to gain more wisdom, more space to utilize the wisdom, more space to lean in, to surrender, and to get out of the survival mode that I had been in my entire life. And also I had acquired the spirit of overgiving and pouring from an empty cup and thinking that my sole purpose is to give to others rather than give to myself. And that is when I started unpacking the attic. So, the attic. My attic is similar to, I had a dream about it, so I know what it feels like. Think of hoarders. That was my attic. I hoard, but I hoard emotions, and I keep them in places. They're all organized. Trust me, they're all organized. I have a Virgo rising. They're all organized. They're all compartmentalized. They all have a place. I can go into my attic and I can pick. I can tell you exactly. I have a very vivid memory. I have memories from when I was 5, 4. So if you are a highly sensitive person or an empath of any kind, nothing leaves you. It stays. It's about what are you doing with it. So I learned how to take my blessings and transmute it. I learned how to take my own energy and value it. I learned how to take my gifts and build upon them. And that came through total losses and hitting rock bottom several times and looking at the bottom and knowing how to climb out and being okay with getting dirty. Because a lot of people who choose not to go down the pathway of healing or spiritual cleansing or whatever you want to call it, or transmutation, transformation, transcendence, ascending, if you choose not to go into those areas of yourself, it's because you just don't want to get dirty. There's a lot of shame and guilt and perceptions that come with getting dirty, going through your house of hoarding and unpacking and cleaning things up all by yourself. You're going to do it with spirit. Spirit is going to send you people that you're going to need in order to clean your house. And I mean your vessel. And when you do, you get a brand new house. That is my wish for anyone on this planet, to take the vessel that they have been given and clean house. Because what's on the other side, you'll never go back to what it was before. The spirits that used to take over your house, the spirit of alcohol and whiskey. I'm that girl. Clean your house. So I'm here to tell you it can happen. So when I say that this is my sacred space, this is my healing space, it's because I spent many, many years cleaning my house. In my house, I had to learn through the dirt, through unpacking one bag at a time, one box at a time, one room at a time, until I could look at my vessel and say, this is what I worked hard for. And Spirit is still allowing me to knock down walls and get behind the walls and clean out the old crevices so that we can rebuild the foundation of our vessel. But that takes time as well. You have to learn how to do that. You just don't knock down a wall. You might hit something electrical, or you might hit some plumbing. You know, you do it gradually. You learn, and then you move based on where Spirit is allowing you to be blessed. So anyone on this journey is capable of healing if that is what you choose to do, but you have to be willing to get dirty. So where am I at now? I'm in a space of still healing, still observing, still intuiting, still being highly sensitive, still being empathic, still being compassionate and forgiving and loving, and not tapping into shame, not tapping into guilt, not tapping into perceptions. When you are loving and gentle with yourself, you can be loving and gentle and compassionate and forgiving to other people. So we're all a work in progress, including me. But if you found yourself here, it's because there's something that you need to learn and build and know that you can do it. And you can. Because even the darkest spaces can be cleansed. Even the darkest spaces, you have to be willing to go in there though. So if you found any nuggets in my personal story, hit that like button, share it with a friend, share it with your neighbor, share it with a coworker, share it with someone who's in a dark space, and hope and pray that they find light. Hope and pray that they can find something that is worth getting dirty for. Because when you swim deep into your soul, you're going to find peace somewhere. But you have to be able to go through the muck, to go through the dark spaces that no one else sees. And I wish that for anyone. If you find anything here today that has been helpful to you, I appreciate you for being here, for holding space for me, and for sharing with me in my story. I would not have arrived here in this platform or on these platforms if it were not for my personal story.